when you come from Western civilization, in a society where you've been able to work and be rewarded, and you've been able to improve your life, and you've had opportunity, you really cannot understand what it is like to work hard all your life and never have opportunity. So as humble as you think you are when you're young, life will show you new levels of humility. It really will. And when you think you've got things figured out, you can be 100% certain you don't, right? And you will learn that over time, and you can only learn that the hard way, I think. Nobody can teach you that. It's just like you can intellectually, you can understand it, but you can't really and truly understand it until you've lived it. So that's one thing that I would say to people. If I could have been more conscious of what I didn't know. I mean, I understood that I didn't know things. I wasn't afraid to acknowledge that, but I really didn't account for the unknowable. I didn't factor that into the equation, and I should have. Well, I would have been better. I would have been better at my job if I had. The other thing that I would say is that I did not understand the role that God was playing in every part of my life. I thought I walked alone.
That a little bit.
I thought I walked alone, and I was wrong.
Yeah, that awareness is a really interesting one, because it provides two different things, I think. One is it provides a certain sense of peace and calm. But at the same time, too, there's a certain sense of mystery. Like, how much greater can this life be, and how much more can I actually do because I was created for something huge and amazing, and it makes sense of suffering too. You've gone through a lot of challenges. I mean, even when you said there are some people that will work their entire life without opportunity, and you have to visit a lot of different countries to see that, where there are some people where you say, you know what, if you were born in America and you had that same attitude and that same work ethic, you would have become something incredible. And if you'd have taken somebody from America and moved them here who did accomplish something, they would be right where you are. We have a tendency to believe that there are certain things in our lives that we have ownership over. But I remember even Warren Buffett once saying, somebody asked him about his success, and among other things, because he's practical, he said, I'm lucky. And that's offensive to your modern grind it and you can accomplish all things type of person. But there's a certain amount of luck in there. What are some of the stories that you've seen when you've been in some of these countries that kind of rip your heart out? And how do you kind of reconcile that in your own world to be able to just kind of forge on doing the work that you do?
It's funny what you say about luck, right? Because we used to have this conversation all the time in my team at 60 Minutes, because we went to, we were in Iraq and Afghanistan and the battlefield, and we didn't just go as tourists and camp out in a hotel. We got right to the heart of the fight, right? So we were in a lot of very dangerous situations. And I always used to say to people, well, you try to make the best decisions and you do this and that, but you also, and then, you get lucky. And one of the greatest journalists I ever worked with, who was a producer and cameraman and a great field producer, always used to say to me, I find the smarter I am, the luckier I get. Yep. Which always made me laugh. And I gotta say, for me, I can't speak for other people, but for me, the luck that I have had, I really put down to the angels on my shoulder. I mean, God gave me opportunities along the way to make decisions for the right reasons. And I feel that I was rewarded with protection. Like, for example, when I was living with the Afghan soldiers on the front line in the Afghan war, before the U.S. had even landed or let their presence be known, put it that way. There were small teams operating on the ground, but not the big presence, right? And at that time, I was living with an Afghan general, and he would meet regularly with Taliban commanders who would drive out of Kabul at night to escape the bombings, leave their people to get bombed, of course, and then come and make their deals with people who, although they were on the other side, they'd known many of these people all their lives. And so that was their way out, right, was to cut a deal. And I was part of all of these meetings, night after night after night. And every night the general would say to me, "You want to go to Kabul? Like, you can go." And I looked at that and I realized, what is my editorial contribution to the story? Like, that's what would justify this decision. It was never a stunt for me. It was never about headlines. It was never about, oh, Lara Logan goes into Kabul. You know what I mean? I looked at it and there was a BBC journalist, Raghi Omar, and there was one other journalist who were in Kabul. So we were still getting news and reports, very good reporting on the ground in Kabul. So I couldn't justify that risk. I couldn't say that journalistically it's worth it to get in the car with a bunch of Taliban, none of whom speak English, who are, they owned 80%, 90% of the country at that point, right? Women were executed in the stadiums en masse just for showing a sliver of flesh, right? This is a very, very dangerous time and a very powerful enemy. And so in order to justify taking a risk like that, my consideration was purely editorial. I didn't put fame or any of those other things. So I believe that, when faced with those critical decisions, if you're motivated by the right things, you exponentially increase your chances of surviving this, because what you're doing has the hand of God on it. When you do things, out of greed and other motives that I wouldn't consider particularly noble, I think that you start to increase your chances of bad luck catching up with you, because, and I would also say that, in terms of, what are some of the things that I have seen and how I've dealt with that, this is really an extraordinary thing that God has done with me, because people all the time at various stages of my career, particularly when I was, causing trouble, right, would try to imply or infer.
Wait. When were you not causing trouble?
Okay, so for many occasions in my career, people have tried to suggest that, oh, well, you must have PTSD, or you must need to see a therapist, or you need counseling. You've been through so much. I've seen people dead. I've seen people dying. I've seen horrific things, right? And and yet somehow I am completely intact. And that is not because I don't feel that pain. It's not because I haven't cried. I mean, I have cried. I have given every part of my heart, body, and soul to the people whose stories I've told, to the places that I've been. I mean, it's a gift. What I've been able to do and what I have been able to do with that, right? And the places that I have gone and what I have been able to take with me has truly been a gift. And I have given everything I am in return. And so somehow in that process, I am completely at peace